So day one of our crochet along, and I'm going to start from the very beginning today. And today there's no choice, you're all going to be making the same. But just to recap what you need to join in this cowl. So first you will need a Phillipe the Gargoyle kit. So what that will do is that will give you the base pattern for the body and head for which we're going to be starting today. So you still need to get yourself a kit, whether that be using our double knit yarn, our Aran yarn or our chunky yarn. And obviously the hook size that you use will depend on the thickness of yarn. So if you're using a double knit, it will be a 3mm hook you need. If you've got a large kit, an Aran kit, then it's a 5mm. And if you've gone all in and the chunky gargoyle's stolen your heart, then it's an 8mm crochet hook that you'll need for that. As we continue, you will obviously also need some stuffing when we get towards the end. You'll need some black thread or some safety eyes to actually sew those eyes on at the end. You will need a wool needle to sew up, so you'll need one of those further down the line as well as we get to that day. And then it's optional if you want to add the modelling wire. But if you've chosen a kit, then your bulk yarn will be included. The only other thing to flag is if you're going to make the choices. So this gargoyle here has been created using the alternative horns and eyes and nose. You can download this free from toftuk.com, and then you'll have an alternative version of the pattern. That will also give you wing patterns as well. As we get towards the end of the cowl, you'll be able to make loads of extra choices. And the only extra thing to flag there is if you want to be able to say yes to absolutely everything in that bonus PDF, you might also want to consider getting a 25 gram of complementary yarn to your original colour that you're using, just so that then you can use that in combination with the 100 grams to make sure that you'll be able to make all of the extras that you want to make, including those wings. Right, let's start from the very beginning, because I know that we'll have beginners joining us as well. So I'm going to go from the very start. And the nice thing with this pattern is it is totally in standard form using the standard increase. So this will be a very helpful video for anybody who is actually trying this style of crochet for the very first time, where we're starting from 6 stitches in a ring and then we're increasing out by 6 stitches every round. So when you're looking in your pattern, it is your head that we're going to be starting with, and we're going to be starting from the very beginning. So commence with a slip knot, and to tie a slip knot with this style of magic ring, we need to make sure that it's the tail end of the slip knot that controls it. So wrap it round like that, come through the hole and take hold of the tail, and then draw that up and just double check that your slip knot is controlled by the tail end like that, and then pop that onto your crochet hook. Then what you're going to do is chain 2 stitches, and then we're actually going to be double crocheting our 6 original stitches into our first chain hole. So if you look at your pattern at the first line of instruction under the head, it will say begin by DC 6 into ring. So what we're doing here is we're actually going to create that ring from which everything begins. So chain 2 stitches, so 1 and 2. And then what we're going to do is double crochet 6 stitches into this original chain hole here. So just to flag at this stage, these are British crochet terms. So this is an American SC, but it is a British double crochet stitch. And what you do is you go in that first chain hole, yarn over and through to the point where you've got 2 loops on your hook like that. You yarn over and come through those 2 loops in one motion. That is a British DC or double crochet stitch. And then what we're going to do is do 5 more of them into that same chain hole. So you go back in, and that's the second one. Third one. Fourth one. 5th one, and then the 6th one. So you've got 6 double crochet stitches into that first chain hole like that, and then all you do is you pull that tail end tight, and you'll find that your 6 stitches form into a neat circle like that from where everything begins. So this is the top of the head like this, that you can see there, those 6 stitches in a ring, and then we're going to be increasing these stitches outwards to create the top of the head. So we've got 6 stitches in a ring. Now all I'm going to talk about for a second before I continue is how I hold my hook and my yarn if you are new to crochet. So I'm a right-handed crocheter, and that means that I'm holding my hook in my right hand and my yarn in my left hand. I hold overhand like this because I find it gives me more control, but you can hold pencil hold if you prefer, and that's more comfortable for you, which is underneath. The most important thing is making sure that you've got a nice 180-degree movement on that crochet hook tip to make sure you can move it from the top downwards like that. So once you've got your 6 stitches in a ring, what we're then going to be doing is increasing these up to 12 stitches. So your round 1 of instruction, and RND is the abbreviation for a round. So it'll say RND1, round 1, DC2 into the next stitch 6 times, and that's in brackets, the repeat, and then it will have the number 12 at the end of the round. So just to break that down for you, we've got 6 stitches at the moment. We're going to go round and double crochet 2 stitches into each of those 6 stitches, and that will give us 12 once we finish. So what you need to do, if you're struggling to see where your 6 are, count backwards, not from your live one here, count backwards 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then you put your hook right in beneath the whole stitch, so in beneath both sides of that V like that, and do 1, and then back into the same hole and do a second one. So you've turned the first stitch into 2 stitches by double crocheting it twice. Now, if you're struggling to see this, because I am working on a double knit yarn here on the camera, there are lots and lots of videos on this TOFT YouTube channel where I use chunky yarn, so the stitches are a little bit bigger for you to see if this is the first time that you're ever looking at this. So you can always stop here, go and watch one of those where you get a bit of a closer up, chunkier view on it, and then you can come back to that one later on. So 1, 2 into that first one, then onto this next one, and that is 3 and 4, then on to the next one, 5 and 6, then on to the next one, and the next one's always going to be that V there. Do you see the V that's next along? So 7 and 8, on to the next one, 9 and 10, and then on to the final one, 11 and 12. And what you'll have just seen me do there is pull that tail to keep that circle in the center nice and closed. So now let's count our stitches, and I promise you from now on in it actually all gets easier. The most fiddly bit is the bit we've just done, where you don't feel like you've got a lot to hold on to. From now on in, it becomes much more significant in your hand, much easier to see and count those stitches, and you don't feel like it's whizzing around your hook in the same way. So when we're counting these stitches, you don't count the live one here. You count these V's around the edge of the circle. So this would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11 and 12 would be that one there. So just watch out for that one at the end that might be hiding. That's our 12 stitches in a ring. So I know I've completed round 1. I've double checked I've got 12. And so what you now need is a little piece of scrap yarn. Now that can be any colour, or you could use a stitch marker if you prefer. And all you need to do is drop into this last stitch and pop that piece of contrast yarn in. And that means that you know you're never going to have to do round 1 ever again. You had the correct stitch count at that point. It's just onwards and upwards from now on in. There's no way that you'll have to ever go back to the start. So the next round of instruction, round 2, will say DC1 and then DC2 into the next stitch. And that is as literal as what we're going to do is we're going to carry on. We're always moving in the same direction around this circle. You're not ever chaining or doing anything extra as you move from one round to the other. We go straight on into the next stitch. So this next round of instruction will be to DC1 like that. And then on to the next one, we'll do DC2 into this stitch. So we're going to go and do 1, and then back into the same hole and do a second one. So we're effectively doing 1 double crochet and then an increase. So 1 in and then back into that same hole to do it again. So we do 1 into 1 and then 2 into the one that comes after it. So 1 into 1, 2 into the one that comes after it, 1 into 1, 2 into the one that comes after it, and then 1 into 1, 2 into the one that comes after it, and then pause if you are new to this style of crochet or to crochet in general, and count how many stitches you've got on your circle again at this point. So count, you should have 18. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18 stitches. So I know that I'm correct because that's the number in your brackets at the end of that round of your pattern. Dip down, pull your stitch marker up with you. So you know you've got 18, tick that off, and we know we're on to the next one now. Now I'm going to put a really big flag up on this next round. This is the round where a lot of people trip up on reading the pattern for the first time. And that's because what it says is to DC2 and then DC2 into the next stitch. And what you have a temptation to do, because you're excited that it's growing nice and fast, is to increase all of them. But what we're aiming to do, we did 6 in a ring to begin with. We went to 12 on our first round because we put 6 in. Then 12 add 6 is 18. Because we've added another 6 in. So now we're trying to go to 24. So to get to 24, what we need to do is really evenly spread those increases out again. So when it says DC2, comma, DC2 into next stitch, what it means is you go in and you DC 1, then on to the next stitch and you DC 1. So you've done 1 into 1, 1 into the second one, and then you DC 2 into that third one. That is your increase. So it's not increasing all of them. It is DC 1, DC 1, and then DC 2 into that third stitch. So DC 1, DC 1, and then DC 2 into the next stitch. So DC 1, DC 1, and then DC2 into that third stitch. Now, if you find at the end of this round that you've got far more stitches than you should have, then what you've probably done is increase them all. So just go back and double check. Or if you find it's gone frilly rather than sitting flat, again, that's a bit of another flag that you might have done that same thing. It should still be a nice flat hexagon that you've made like this. So it'll be a nice flat hexagon like that that you'll then be carrying on with. And so long as you add 6 stitches into a round like we have been doing, then that's what you will create, is a flat hexagon that then forms the top of that head. So I'm going to just talk you through the pattern a little bit more, but then I'll leave you to it rather than going step by step through this next bit. So what you're going to be doing is carry on doing that same pattern that we've been doing. So adding 6 in each round. So your next round, you'll be doing 1, 2, 3, and then an increase. The following round, you'll be doing 1, 2, 3, 4, and then an increase. The next one, you'll be doing 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then an increase. And your circle will get bigger until you reach the top of the head, so the maximum circumference. Then in your pattern, where it just says a big chunk of rounds and it just says DC on them, what that means is you'll just be putting 1 into each of them, and that's how it becomes a 3D shape for the first time. And this will be exactly the same for all of this style of crochet, whether you're making a gargoyle or whether you're making Emma the Bunny, is at that point where you've got your maximum circumference because you've done your increasing, and you just then do 1 DC into all of the stitches. That's when it becomes 3D and bowl shaped, which will be when we're doing the edge of the head. So I'm going to go away and crochet that bit and then come back to you and to show you the decrease, which is the last thing that we'll be learning today. So by the time you get to round 14, this is what the head of your gargoyle is going to look like. So this is the section where you're at the widest point and then you're just doing 1 into each stitch to go round and round, and it forms a bowl. So let's take a second just to talk about right side and wrong side, as well as tension. So in this style of crochet, because you're constantly moving in one direction in the circle, well, in a spiral effectively, because you're not ever stepping up or closing down that circle, it means that you end up with a definite right side and a wrong side to your fabric. Now, indicator number 1 should be that the tail end is actually on the wrong side of your fabric. So if you've got your tail where we started, that should be on the wrong side of your fabric. But when you're actually looking at the fabric itself, you should be able to see the circles moving outwards on the right side. It should look much messier on the inside, or if you hold it flat like that, you should be able to see horizontal lines coming out of that central circle on the right side. Now, let's just talk a second about how to make sure that you're making your gargoyle the right way out rather than inside out. And what's key to that is what you need to make sure that you're doing is whenever you're crocheting, make sure that the next stitch that you're going to be crocheting, whether you're right or left-handed, is always closest to your body with your crochet work away from you. So it's sometimes tempting to hold it like this, but if you do that, you'll actually be effectively making it inside out. So if you find that you've got crochet between the stitch that you're working and your body, just flip it the other way around and hold it like that, because so long as you're always working that stitch, so that next stitch that you're working is closest to your body with nothing in between, then your work will always be right side out. So let's do a decrease. So we've got it to this point. You know how to increase. You know how to make it get 3D by just working one into each. We're now going to decrease it back down again. So we're going to DC7 first. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then what you're going to do is a DC2 tog, which is effectively doing the opposite of when we put 2 into 1, our DC2 into next stitch. So normally when we've been crocheting, we've been going right the way beneath both sides of those V's to do your double crochet stitch. That is correct. But when we do our DC2 tog or double crochet 2 together, we're going to come up the front of a stitch like that. So we've got half of that stitch on our hook, then go back down and get the front of the next one in the same way. So you've got 2 halves of the next 2 stitches on your hook, and then we're going to double crochet through those 2 halves. So yarn over through there, yarn over and through the 2 loops, and that is it. And what it does is it does you a nice invisible decrease, because you're bringing up the stitches to do your decrease in terms of the numbers, but the backs remain there to fill in any holes and not create a lump in your fabric. And on the wrong side, which is why I pointed it out, you do actually leave those little bars behind. So when it comes to working out your right side and wrong side in future, you'll also be able to spot them by those little bars wherever you've done a decrease. So then we're repeating that again. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then the DC2 tog, or decrease the double crochet 2 together, up half and then back down in the same way with your hook. So you've got 2 halves of the next 2 stitches like that. And then double crochet through those 2 halves to decrease it. So I'm going to go right the way around so you've seen it a few more times. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. And then through the half, and then yarn over through those 2 halves, and then through the 2 loops. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, and then half and half, and decrease. Right, so that ends today's video really. What you're going to do is carry on 3, I can't talk and count, for I'm ready to get myself to a good place, 6 and 7. So carry on and decreasing it back down, and what we will have created by the end of today is a big ball, which then becomes the head. So all of this gets sewn on at the end as we make the bits and pieces. You will create a big ball because you're going to carry on decreasing down here. Then tomorrow we'll be carrying on to do the body, so there's no need to break your yarn. When you finish today's piece of the pattern, I mean, if you want to and you're feeling confident, of course, go on and do the body. But for those of you that want to do it in little bite-sized chunks, finish on the head when you do those decreasing, but you don't need to break your yarn. Leave it attached, and then I'll rejoin tomorrow and we'll carry on with the body.